Welcome back to WCS America Premier League Group E action over here on this lovely Wednesday. We just finished up our first series of the day. Hyun won it pretty convincingly, but I know Jim can do better than that. Sometimes it's just a few silly mistakes which make the series look one-sided, but it could be a lot closer. It should have been a lot closer.
Yeah, I mean, Hyun, we can't just say, Jim obviously played well, but Hyun made some really cool plays. His roach control, his decision-making in that first series, especially the first map, being able to use those roaches after, well, we talked about it. He lost 34 drones. He was like 20 drones versus almost 50 probes. That's just one of those situations where Hyun being Hyun, as one of the scariest players, I would say, in the world right now as far as all these StarCraft competitions go.
Yep. Either way, we are getting ready for our second series of the day. It's going to be between two amazing Korean players, so we will play these games on the Korean server as well. As of course, we want to provide the best games possible to you guys. If anyone always wants to play on NA, we'll always play on NA. And of course, we have a North American. This is WCS America, so we play on NA. But if both players want to play on the Korean server, we want to bring you guys the best quality of games. And both Jaedong and Hart have asked us for it. So we say, of course. Let's do it, guys. Let's talk a little bit about Hart, because, Jaedong is a man, of course, who doesn't really need an introduction. Hart, he's been around for a long time. He's also a Terran player that should not need an introduction, but perhaps for some people, he still needs one.
Hart, whenever I think about Hart, I think of all the MLGs I was able to go to in like 2012, 2013. This guy he went, particularly when he was on Complexity a lot, you'd always see him getting up in the top 8 finishes of these tournaments, but not really getting the actual finals, not getting the championships, but he's been very solid since pretty much throughout his whole career. And now on Team Axiom, we saw him hit round of 16 for a couple seasons. Last season, he was actually eliminated in the group that had Hyun in it in the round of 16, but he's taken big games off popular other Zerg players like Toonming, Scarlet, especially in Season 1. He's definitely not someone to be underestimated going into this series.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Toonming and Scarlet, both very, very good Zerg players, but that was a different map pool, though. How much of a difference do you think that's going to make? Then again, we do have the Super Hellbat now, so that kind of evens things out.
It's funny because I've been trying to keep up on what people have been doing as far as Terran versus Zerg builds since the patch came out, and it's still so fresh that we haven't seen innovation, go back into Mega Hellbat mode in GSL just yet. But when I look at the build orders, no one's really doing anything super crazy yet. And on these maps, you do make a good point. I feel like it's been a little bit, Zerg players are having a little bit more success on this map pool, particularly versus Terran. But Hart, if there's anybody that can plan builds well, especially, he's also very, very smart player. So I would personally love to see him take that, take the maps, take what options he has into account. But I wouldn't be surprised if we also ended up playing, Frost, Overgrowth, Habitation, a very similar set to, what everybody else is going for.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a way station in there. I do agree with what you said about Hart. Hart often just a very standard Terran player, and that's absolutely not meant in a bad way. That just means that he plays pretty straight up. He had his crazy builds in the past. He's also the type of player that just kind of does what he does. It's a little bit similar to Bomber, how Bomber just always, like, if he finds something, then he goes with it for a while, and he executes it, tries something, and then he just marches across the map with all his bio units. And I feel that's the same thing by Hart. I'm not expecting anything super crazy from him. I think it's going to be pretty straight up. However, our first map is going to be Merry-Go-Round, and I think if Hart wants to do something special, a little bit different, this is probably one of the best maps to do it on.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of those maps. When I look at Merry-Go-Round, I've had a lot of really interesting games on this map myself. I've seen a lot of interesting games. 3 base setups get into such crazy positions when the Zerg player opens with anything like roaches. And to be just totally honest, Jaedong, ZVT, not something I've seen a lot of either. He's, we've seen him obviously been preparing and practicing for this WCS group, but he hasn't been streaming or anything like that, or at least not from what I've been able to see.
But there is a bot, Nate. And the bot was Lone Star Clash Invitational earlier this month. And back then, Jaedong showed us that his CVT right now looks good, that it's been better than it has been in a while. He finally got his revenge on Polt with either a 4-1 or a 4-2 score in the grand final. But Jaedong looked really solid, and never at any moment did I have the feeling that Jaedong was not going to win that series. However, he's going to have to do it today. This is a really big day for Jaedong, as we are going to go ahead and jump into our very first game of the day, as this Blue Zerg, who lost surprisingly in the round of 32 in WCS America Season 1, is of course EG's Jaedong. And the reason why I say big game, big day. Not, of course, about all the money that is on the line for WCS and all the glory and whatnot, as Jaedong has won so much already. But it's time that Jaedong starts collecting a lot of WCS points. He needs that big finish. Losing in the round of 32 in Season 1 was a big upset. He needs to start collecting points if he wants to make it to that grand final in the end of the year.
Yeah, considering how far he made it in last year's grand final, not being able to make it would be, I think, probably even a story in and of itself. His opponent in the top left, the red Terran player representing Axiom Esports, it is Hart.
Hart is a Terran that really grew on me. I kind of liked him in Wings of Liberty already. I thought he was a cool player, especially because he had like some of the silliest one-base all-ins against Protoss that I've ever seen.
I recall like when I think of Hart's games, can't help but go back. I think it was versus Naniwan, like in Tuned Valley, breaking out the 1-1-1, using like the way the low ground was shaped under the natural. This guy.
Yeah, he had some really crazy one-base builds against Protoss and Wings, and that's what I kind of remembered him for a long time. But during the time that he has played in WCS America, I got a little bit more familiar with his style. He showed us some excellent games, and I actually think last season was the best Hart that I've seen in a very long time. I think he played really good, made it to the round of 16, out of a pretty tough group as well. Let's not forget, he was in that group with Toot Ming and Scarlet, like you said, and that is no easy feat for anyone to come out of a group like that. He won it. Offline, it wasn't that successful, but he still showed us some good games, and I think he's capable of making another deep run and perhaps upsetting one of those two monster Zergs that we have in this group.
Yeah, definitely anything possible. I'm really interested to see where he takes this. Terran versus Zerg, by and large, and just to quickly point out, we have gas opening from Jaedong, so there is a little bit of potential for some early aggression if he wants to go in that space. It's not the fastest gas possible. But, you know, he has that option. It's something that Hart's going to keep his eyes open for. But this matchup is still in a space where lots of people are doing different things. This in particular is one of the maps where a surprising amount of Terran players have been going for mech-based builds. And I think it's kind of interesting. It's not something I've had much success with the way that the third base is laid out. But maybe Hart has something specially prepared. Maybe he's been studying Jaedong, looking at those games from Lone Star Clash, and it's going to show us something cool.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. If I was Hart, I would have definitely taken a look at that, because that's the most recent, most important series against a high-skilled Terran that Jaedong has played in that final. Of course, once again, he played against Polt. It doesn't really get much better than that. No one is hiding strategies ever when he's playing in a tournament final, especially not against Polt. You know you're going to have to bring your A game. So I think that Hart was able to get some information out of that. Interesting, we see one Reaper and immediately the reactor go down. Absolutely immediately.
I really like this build on this map. There's not a crazy amount of space for that Reaper to jump around and get scouting. But one Reaper, at the very worst, if you don't scout, you can always suicide it. But getting the quick reactor means these 2 Marines, these 4 Marines he's going to make while he builds this factory that can keep any Overlords out of his base. You cannot hide Overlords in this map behind the natural or the main base. If he wants to hide a second factory in his main, it's very easy to do that. If he wants to hide a starport, very easy. There is absolutely no way that Jaedong should be able to get a scout off on what Hart is doing.
Quick starport indeed going down. So these Banshees, and of course it's a relatively small map as well. The air distance from the base of Hart to the base of Jaedong is really not that big. And if he shows a reasonable amount of Hellions, maybe he can surprise his opponent with either a quick Banshee follow-up in the main, or maybe even using those Banshees to complement the Hellions and snipe a bunch of those Queens.
Yeah, I feel like Hart's... Oh, actually, Hart goes straight for Stim as well. So with his second gas that he's taken...
Maybe it's like a super quick, like 16 Marine drop with Stim and 2 medevacs?
Yeah, I don't think he'll have Stim in time for any medevac timing. I would think maybe if he was saving up gas to get an armory, this could turn into a Hellbat drop after this Viking. Okay, so he builds the Viking that goes out, and then I'd have to imagine either an armory or just a Hellion drop. I don't know. This is a bit more Polt-esque from like last year's WCS. He's just not going to be super aggressive at all, I guess.
I mean, I still think that he wants to do something with this quick Stim. I think he wants to drop maybe...
Okay, there's the armory.
Okay.
All right. I was thinking, because the only way that you could use this setup with otherwise you would want a really fast third command center where the whole denying the scouting doesn't really mean anything. So the armory will help for... He could get some Hellbat action going. Jaedong's not doing anything crazy himself. He's got his Zergling speed together. These Zerglings getting picked off by these Hellions, but you know, he's taken the far right third base. Very difficult for Hart to push that.
Yep, it's pretty far away as possible. We do see the medevac follow-up. So we'll see. He's kind of hiding 2 Hellions right now in his main as well. Maybe worried about a bunch of Zerglings streaming across the map. We see the layer go down right now in the main base of Jaedong at 7 minutes 45 seconds. Jaedong is also morphing a Spine Crawler in the main base. Perhaps he is worried about something. He's also able to get a surround in the middle of the map on these Hellions. This is kind of bad for Hard. This destroys everything.
Yeah, I think seeing this Viking says, I'm not going Banshee, but I have a starport, and you know I have Hellions. Jaedong, maybe he's been seeing this a bit more on the Korean ladder, where in a couple of Terran players have been doing this. He's going back into Hellbat drops. So the Viking almost getting 2 Overlord kills right there.
Yeah, but getting nothing in the end.
But you know, you make a really good point. This preemptive Spine Crawler makes no sense in a normal game, but based on what he's seen, he can maybe think, okay, there's potential for a Hellbat attack, but he's actually got Marines in that medevac.
Also just showing how much, that also shows how much Jaedong has grown as a player, because in the, a year ago, he would have probably been surprised by something like that, even though, of course, he was a beast already a year ago. Right now, Jaedong seems to be so on top of his game, especially against Terran. You see these Hellions morphing into Hellbats right now, so this is actually kind of a beastie push against just Zerglings, but imagine if he has like 3 more Hellbats in this mix, then it's double as scary. What a cool push over here by Hard.
You know, he didn't actually build any Banelings despite having the Baneling nest, loses 1 queen, not able to get a transfuse off, loses a 2nd queen. I mean, he's going to go. The Banelings in production, if he could snipe these off, that's really all he has to deal with this force. Banelings are going to finish morphing, just pull the Marines behind, and he kills a few of the Hellbats, but the medevac's still here. The Hellbats are still roasted and toasted a lot of these Zerglings, but most importantly, Jaedong is kind of managed. How many drones did he lose? Just 1. So he's held on, and he has his 1/1 upgrade. So he has a pretty big advantage in head-to-head engagements against this Bioforce now.
You know what would have been super sick? Like, all these Banelings were morphing over here. If you would have trapped those Banelings with just Hellbats, because those Banelings actually kind of connected with a couple of Marines. If like 2 Hellbats over here and 2 Hellbats over here, then those Banelings would have been forced to blow up at Hellbats. Of course, it takes so many Banelings to kill a Hellbat. Drones being pulled immediately, these 2 Hellbats will fall as well. In the end, Hard not getting the damage done that he was looking for. So he was definitely adapting to this new patch a little bit. I think it's super unfortunate he lost those 2 or 3 Hellbats, because things can really snowball. If he doesn't lose those Hellions in the middle of the map, that push is a lot stronger.
Yeah, I think maybe all the units weren't focusing on those Baneling cocoons, but if those die, you're never going to break those full health Hellbats tucked into the mineral online with just Zerglings. But Jaedong's got Mutalisks on the way out now. He has not missed a beat with his macro. He's still got everything nice. The only thing I would have liked to see is him squeeze out the 2/2 upgrades, but that's what he put the money to get. That's where he took the money to get the Mutalisks out. Marine drop has landed in Jaedong's main base. Is he aware of this? Most of his army is still sitting in the 3rd base area, now running into the main. He's going to start focusing down these drones, and this is a very nice little attack for Hart.
Yep, picked up a couple of drones and will be able to get most of his Marines out of there. So Hard strikes back a little bit up, gets 4 or 5 more additional workers. That is definitely something to worry with, but he does have to worry about, or to work with, but he does have to worry about this counter-attack. Now a couple of these Marines will be unloaded, but there are Zerglings standing on top of them as well. Here are the reinforcements though, and a few Widow Mines in the mix as well.
Yeah, this is we're shaping up to be pretty standard. So Hart actually, despite having such a later +1 set of upgrades, has his 2/2 on the way before Jaedong even starts his. So that ends up kind of being nice for him. Jaedong's going to take his 4th base, but Jaedong's core is still set up fine. When you're playing Ling, Baneling, Muta, if the Banelings get the connections they need, sometimes those Zergling upgrades aren't as big of a deal. You just cannot take any fights off creep like we saw Czech do against Neeb.
And it's kind of funny as well, because of course Jaedong taking that safer 3rd base means that his 4th base is a little more exposed, and it's a lot easier for Hard to pressure this. There's not that much creep to worry about either if he goes via the south side. Via the middle of the map, of course, there is some creep, as this is Jaedong, and he's been doing a reasonable job in spreading it.
Yeah, 2/2 is, well, at least just +2 melee has begun for Jaedong, but you know, that +2 is halfway complete for Hart. If he makes a big push around the time that completes, he's going to have, I think, a very sizable chance of knocking down that 4th base. And right now, keeping the creep away is one of the best possible things that he could do to set himself up for that attack. These Mutalisks being a little bit brave, not losing too many of them, though.
Actually, didn't lose a single one. All right, there we go.
That mine.
We'll lose 1, but Jaedong, he only has 12 Mutalisks. That's interesting as well, because that is not enough Mutalisks to actually be scary. It's enough to chase down a medevac. Wow, this Zergling laughs in the face of Changer. He's like,
If there's smoke between you and a landmine, you're okay.
Reinforcements coming in for Jaedong. Hard has a lot of army supply, but he's not really ready. All the Banelings actually blowing up on a lot of those mines that were already detonated as well.
Yeah, that's fighting off creep, though. It's very difficult. All the Zerglings ran in before the Banelings even showed up, and that allowed him to take out pretty much all the Zerglings. He needs to be careful. This is actually surprisingly nice for Jaedong because +2 isn't done yet for Hart, but can he get the splits that he needs? A lot of these Marauders actually retreating behind the Marines, but that spread seems to be enough. There's so much bio on the map, so many Marines here.
That was a great spread. That was
what's left?
There's a lot of bio left. 2-2 finishes up for our Terran play now as well. Hard being up 21 supply. And once again, this fourth base is the most exposed base. There is no static. There's a little bit of creep. Good scan over there. Gets everything but a single creep tumor. So if he's able to clear this out. How many Banelings do we have? Not a single one right now, but a lot of them are morphing. Actually in range of these bio units though.
2-2 is complete. Hard splitting backwards on creep. These Banelings not getting the detonations that they need. And there's only 2 left on the map. 4 more in production, but the Mutalisks alone cannot take down this Bioforce. The Marauders take all those Baneling hits, and GG is called by Jaedong Hart. Our Axiom Terran takes game number 1 in our second best of 3 of the day. Not bad at all by our Korean Terran player.
No, not at all. Good game there. A little bit surprising as well. Didn't expect that. I expected Jaedong to come out strong today. It was a cool opening by Hard. I really enjoy openings like that. You can see, you know, new patch. I'm going to try to make something work with that. It was a really interesting build. It didn't even work, I think, the way that he was hoping for. I think he was looking for a little bit more damage. But in the end, it was good enough. I just think that this game got decided by that big fight in the middle of the map where you pointed out very well that the Zerglings showed up way before the Banelings did. And off creep as well. Well, Jaedong, you can't really take bad fights against the Terran.
Yeah, it seemed to, you know, oftentimes these Terran versus Zerg games where it's close, it goes very back and forth. And I mentioned back to Czech versus Neeb because those games were very, very like pendulum-like with the way that it swung between the two players having a lead. And in this game, it just didn't seem that Hart made any errors at all. The only fight that he really took, he was off creep. He had that upgrade advantage coming in very soon, and he split his Marines perfectly.
Yep.
Like there were almost no errors at all from Hart in that whole game.
Yeah, you could really see where Hart still shines a little bit as well, because those were some excellent splits. We can take another look at that fight. It might be in the game-deciding fight over here. Look at a couple of those Banelings as well. I guess that was before this, but look at those splits. Super well done.
And aside from targeting down, like he had the Marauders up front as well that soaked those up. So fantastic first game from Hart, and you know we're all ready to jump into our second map, guys. We're going to be playing this out on Frost here. And
Wait, we need a few seconds to get over this because this is a little bit of a shock, Nate.
You think so?
Yeah, we are playing on Frost.
Oh.
It's ironic, Nate. I wasn't actually serious.
Oh.
We have to work on this a little. Anyway, game number 2 is live, as you guys can see behind us. Jaedong down 0-1. Do we have another surprise ahead of us, Nate? It is very well possible because this red Terran player, representing Axiom Esports, spawning in the right bottom side of Frost, played very well in game number 1. He's, of course, Hart.
Yeah, Hart. I think flawless is the best way to describe how that game went for him. His opponent in the top left position, the Zerg player from Evil Geniuses. It is Lee Jaedong. Down 1 map in this best of 3. And we're going to keep in mind if Hart wins this, he'll go on to play against Hyun. Jaedong would drop to play against Jim. Still difficult matches for all players involved.
Yeah, that would be a little bit of a shocker. And once again, Jim is kind of a wild card as well. I don't feel that Jim is as crazy as Top, for instance, like we saw yesterday or the day before. He's not that crazy, but Jim is still a little bit crazy as well. He kind of has his own builds, plays a little different. Like if you compare, for instance, Jim to either a Parting or especially like someone like Rain or Zest, you know, those guys, they just play 110% different than someone like Jim does. Jim much more timing oriented, often 2 or pseudo 3 bases. So it's a very dangerous opponent for Jaedong. And once again, guys, if Jaedong would lose another season in the round of 32, we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's just a single map so far. But that would be really bad for his hopes to make it to BlizzCon at the end of the year, because there are so many WCS points on the line.
Yeah, the thing is, when you look at it, it's like, yeah, this is the very beginnings of Season 2, but, you know, it's only a couple months away that we've got. You know, November is going to be creeping up on us before we know it, and this is every game counts. Every game counts from this point.
Yep, and it's not like there is a season finals this year to just suddenly collect a whole lot of points. to make sure that you'll be part of this party. So how you perform within your WCS region is extremely important. Either way, so far same opening by Heart, just a single Reaper, and we'll drop this reactor immediately, and of course follows it up with the command center on the low ground.
Yeah, seems to make a lot of sense. The reactor being part of the wall always seems kind of funny. It's a very big target if the Zerg player gets into your base, but I don't think Heart's going to be anticipating that to happen. Zergling speed is on the way for Jaedong, so there's the capability to get a little bit of pressure out if he wants. Of course, cross spawns Frost makes this an interesting setup. Pushing those Zerg bases becomes a bit harder. You mentioned on the last map that 4th base was kind of right in Heart's face once he managed to get past the Xel'Naga Watchtower.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. I think if it was the other way, then maybe Jaedong wouldn't have felt so forced to push the issue and take that fight off creep. Because once again, if that fight just goes a little better for Jaedong, which it 100% would have on creep, because no matter how good Heart splits against a crazy amount of banelings on creep, it's just borderline impossible. So it could have been a completely different game. In the end, it looked one-sided. Perhaps it looked a little bit like a stomp. But once again, one fight can be super decisive in this matchup as well.
Yeah.
Especially if the map is small. Like if the map is larger, of course, Zerg player will have time to get one more wave of banelings out. Terran has to be a lot more cautious stepping on creep, but the moment you throw down one scan on creep, take out some 2 moves, and you're in the face of your opponent's 4th base. Well,
yeah. It almost seems binary, right? It's like if you're on creep, you win as Zerg. If you're off creep, you pretty much always lose, and you have to have a significant advantage from either side if you want to win a fight. In a different set of circumstances. But look at this. We have the Hellions on the way. We have that second gas, that starport, that tech lab. And based on the positioning of the starport, it looks like he's going to go straight for Stim again. And if the Overlord or Jaedong comes in and checks the ramp area, it'll look like a very normal setup. But it's actually headed straight to be in vision of that starport. Oh, just turns around.
Heart does not see this Overlord yet. Of course, the Overlord has more vision than Barracks has.
I wonder if he clicked that gas and saw that it was just started mining. Maybe, I wonder, like, could he know potentially that that he actually has a second gas?
Very early bailing nest go down by Jaedong.
I think maybe he's scared if he does a direct Hellbat push or something like that. Then Baneling's obviously very good versus those, as long as they're not too well spread out. But it's definitely seems a bit early. Maybe he's thinking he could catch if he could catch these Hellions off guard. He's putting out quite a few Zerglings right now. He expects something.
Something is different over here. We can see a lot of Zerglings on the production tab for Jaedong. Is going to go up to close to 30 links. Once again, it's going to be really important for Heart that he doesn't lose these Hellions. With just that single Reaper, of course, he doesn't disturb the early game economy by Jaedong that much. Jaedong right now with all of these Zerglings already positioning them in a cute way, might even go for the counter-attack via the south side of the map, or maybe even hide a few Banelings. Jaedong has something up his sleeve, something planned.
Yeah, there's way too many Zerglings being made for this to be anything other than some form of aggression one way or another. Vikings going across the map. Medevac is on the way, and there's no armory this time around, so this is not going to be that fast Hellbat base play. He's just going to try to do some straight up Hellion drops, maybe even just a clean Marine drop, but that leaves him vulnerable. This potential counter, look, he's producing nothing but Zerglings for the last solid 2 minutes of this game.
Okay, Heart is still completely unaware of this. Banelings morphing outside of his natural right now. It's 18 Banelings. However, this amount of Zerglings is not good enough. So these Zerglings in the middle of the map, they really have to make their way across the map as well. Maybe Heart is going to pick up on this right now.
Yeah, that's too many Zerglings to be used by anything other than reinforcements, but it might be too late. These Banelings should be able to connect with the wall. The Zerglings will be able to get in. He takes down that bunker, and as he goes up this ramp, that reactor's exposed. Well, he can cut the Marine production with Banelings on this ramp, and then everything's going Jaedong's way so far. There's the reactor gone. Production's cut. SCVs come down and try to fight this off.
I think
and now the Hellions are coming back.
Actually, I really think that Heart has done everything right so far. He's going to lose a few SCVs in the process, but he's still on 40 workers. I think this was an absolutely miraculous defense so far. He's not out of the woods just yet, but look at how many SCVs are still alive. He finally loses a few in the main, but 64 against 75 supply. This is really good news if you're a Terran, right?
Yeah, actually, he blew up. I think he blew up a few too many of those Banelings on the barracks, but it's this reinforcement that makes things more and more difficult. The Hellions need to have pretty much the ultimate shots off, because he's going to try to rebuild this wall, but getting that production back up together is going to be difficult. Every time he kills those depots, he can supply block Heart again and again.
Doesn't see the Banelings.
Oh, Baneling's coming in from the bottom side. These Zerglings going to try to hold the army in place, but he does kill those Lings off in time. Heart's Marines are very weak, but the Hellions coming back. He's trying to focus fire down these Banelings. Keep in mind, there's no wall in this main base ramp anymore.
What? Heart is just doing everything right. So far, he has microed his units like an absolute god. There are still more Zerglings streaming across the map. Baneling still not getting the connections that they're looking for. Fantastic unit positioning over here by Heart. Yes, he is still losing SCVs, but his third command center is ready as well. And it's still just Zerglings and Banelings over here for Jaedong. Heart is definitely not safe just yet. He even has to evacuate his natural for a little bit. But I don't think he's going to die over here, Nate.
No, not yet at least. This is a pretty solid spot, and Jaedong's already like, okay, well, I guess I can't kill you now. He's starting up his lair back home. Heart with a third command center. This is actually really nice because Jaedong has no other form of tech behind this, no evolution chambers.
Look at it Viking.
It's going ham.
2 Banelings.
That's the Heart of the Swarm cinematic right there, guys. Lock it up. We're done here.
Wow. Did you see how many beautiful things Heart did over there? The way that he was running immediately at home first, then positioning the Hellions, running back with everything again, only leaving the Hellions behind.
I was so scared because of how far those Hellions away before the fight, but the way that he managed to hold on just barely, and you know there were something like 15 or so Banelings, but when he broke the main base ramp, there was only one left. I think, like with how low health that barracks was, Jaedong might have clicked a few too many of them on there because he should have been able to kill all those SCVs instantly.
Look, more Zerglings and Banelings rolling in again. Of course, Heart can't afford to lose all these mules and SCVs. That would be a little bit painful. These Banelings looking to get some juicy connections. A couple of SCVs are going to try to soak up these Banelings. But I guess that's a reasonable connection there for Jaedong. For the first time, Banelings actually connecting to Marines as well. And I feel that this little counter push was great for Jaedong.
Yeah, that was exactly what he needed. But keep in mind, Heart has 5 barracks on the map. And even though he's only mining off of 1 base right now with the 3 mules on his natural, those Marines are going to be very useful for defending what Jaedong's follow-up is. He's gone straight to his Spire. And of course, with this many Marines on the map, I don't think he can put too much pressure on. He's going to try to take a 4th base.
Yeah, I feel that like Heart has did everything right, but maybe he evacuated these 8 Marines and trying to do some counter pressure a little bit too quickly. By the time that he actually saw what was outside of his natural with that Viking, Jaedong already attacked again, and all those mules not being able to provide the income. It's a little bit unfortunate because it was such a beautiful defense so far by Heart.
You know what I just realized? During all of that, Heart got his 1-1 upgrades. His fights versus these Zerglings are going to be so disgustingly in favor of him. There's still no evolution chambers on the map for Jaedong. I've only seen one Zerg pull this off. I think it was like Life versus Innovation at DreamHack Winter, but even that seemed miraculous. This is going to be very easy for Heart to get good trades now.
Yeah, but he's still down 34 workers, though.
Yeah, I mean, well...
that's quite it.
That's the part where we start asking who believes in the mule.
Well, I believe in the power of the mule. Look at these Hellions. No! No, go up that ramp, Hellion. You need to see it. No, he doesn't see it.
That is...
Oh, look at that one Zergling. He ran up the ramp. He's like, nothing to see here, man.
That's the stuff of nightmares. That number of Banelings is rather high.
The medevac is going to see it right now. That's so many Banelings for the Dong. 38 Banelings and 60 Zerglings. Well, Heart, you had a couple of miraculous holds, but I'm not sure if this is a possible one.
Jaedong's trying to finish this game up. He wants to even out the series, and I don't think he'll be contested. Zerglings in the natural, Banelings in the main, and GG is called from Heart. Jaedong will take game number 2, tying this series up 1 apiece.
Yeah, Jaedong switching things up there, saying like, if you want to do something different, I can do something different as well, and opening up with a ridiculous amount of Zerglings, quicker Baneling nest, and basically just putting on non-stop aggression. I still thought it was absolutely beautiful how Heart was defending there for a while. Like, there were so many Banelings early on, and not a single Baneling actually blew up on Marines. It was just Hellions or depots or buildings. He kept using hold position on the ramp in the best way possible. I love how he like ran up that ramp and immediately raised the depot, and then also realized he had to leave like 2 men behind on the other side of the wall, because if those guys would have ran up as well, then the Zerglings and the Banelings would have been able to get up. It was truly beautiful.
Yeah, he worked his absolute best to try to defend. You can see like he tried to bring these SCVs, and a lot of those Banelings did detonate on the barracks, so Heart had a little bit of help here.
And the pickups as well.
Yeah, and the pickups. He used every unit that he had about as well as he possibly could have, but you know, in the end, Jaedong doesn't do a strategy like this unless he knows that he can pick you off.
Look at this as well, and then like he leaves like the Hellion on the hold position, he gets a few extra banelings, and by the time that the banelings get up the ramp, all the banelings have been done already. That was absolutely beautiful, real Terran art, but this counterattack, that was devastating when you saw those Zerglings and the banelings just after you drop 4 or 5 mules, and you're like, all right, I really need money right now as a Terran. Jaedong comes again, because he's Jaedong.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the situations, it was something like 60 some odd drones versus 20 some SCVs. Try, you know, stabilize. And I think when you're up against an opponent like Jaedong, even if you have, you know, Marines with the upgrades, you still have to worry. It's like, yeah, banelings are still good. You need something that can deal with those. Get either some tanks or some Widow Mines. But if you have pure Marine, even if you've held on, that next big wave can come from all those larva injects, and then, you know, next thing, it's like 30 banelings knocking your front door down.
Do you think it would have made a difference if that Hellion would have seen those banelings? Is there hope?
I think if he's able to pull his forces back, maybe he can take a better trade, but he probably still would have died because no tanks and no Widow Mines.
Yeah. And it's like 35 banelings.
Like, there are some players, like, don't get me wrong, that can do amazing things with just Marines.
Maybe
there were enough Zerglings to distract them for the banelings.
Maybe with a double wall on 2 bases, like throw down 3 E-base in front of your supply depot.
If he had a 6 barracks wall, just double with like 1 space blocking between them all, then maybe.
Like a line of Marines in the middle, you know, that just
a line of Widow Mines in the middle.
Oh yes, that would have been beautiful.
A wall of Thors.
That would work too, unless you're playing as Nesty. Nesty would still do it.
Well, the Thors would take less damage in the buildings, so.
King Sejong Station is going to be our deciding map for our second series of the day. Hopefully you guys are enjoying WCS. We sure are. Once again, reach out to us, hashtag WCS at the Twitter universe. I went for a different tie knot today, so hopefully the conversation is not about my knot or my Trinity special, but someone on Reddit, and I want to give a big shout out to that guy, said like the Trinity knot represents harmony and balance amongst all 3 races of StarCraft 2. I was like, wow.
That is too meta.
I want to wear that knot again. It's going to happen one day, guys.
Maybe someday. Okay, guys, time to find out who is going on to play against Hyun and who will fall down to play against Jim. Our first player spawning in the bottom right position. Representing Axiom Esports, it is none other than Hart. And Hart, I don't think he's tried to do anything super flashy. A nice use of the Hellbat change in the first map of this series, but his opponent not afraid to go for the throat in that second game that he used to tie the series up. From Evil Geniuses, it is Jaedong.
Definitely a cool series so far. We'll see if Hart is going to go for a similar build again, even though both builds were a little different. It's just a single Reaper, and that's not something we see too often these days. In this day and age of TVZ, Terran players just opening up with a single Reaper. You do see that he gives up a little bit of map control earlier, is not able to force out the same amount of Zerglings as some other Terran players are. Of course, with 2 or 3 Reapers, you represent more damage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised actually if he might do it again because it might be the only thing that he really does. So it might be all that he practices, but on this map, opening with more than 1 Reaper isn't bad, since those early Marines, you're really not going to deny the Overlord covering your natural, and there's a lot of other space around your base, especially on the right side, where getting a Marine down there early on can be a little bit tricky. Jaedong going for gas straight away before his spawning pool. He's going to have very fast speed again, and there's that aggressive potential once again opening up.
I do think this is going to be a more straight-up game from the Dong, though, don't you think so? Like, he showed up his little trick card, he tried to surprise Hart, obviously a big commitment, and it worked because in the end he was just able to a few times do a little bit too much damage to the economy. Also worth mentioning is that those few Zerglings that were on hold position in the main, they did a little more damage than I think they should have. Like, if those SCVs would have just stacked up one time, and those links would have followed the SCVs, and there was one Hellion there that could have taken care of it. But of course I'm not going to fault Hart for that, because he had about 100 different things to worry about to not die, and he was doing almost all of them correctly. But a few times, just a few too many units went down. But I think this is going to be a very straight up game from the Dong, and he's just going to try to outplay Hart.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he went for a very standard setup. Reaper is going to now make its way across the map, and he's actually, instead of building the reactor, he builds 1 Marine after the Reaper to try to get this Overlord that went maybe a bit too far. And the Reaper does show up at the natural expansion. Most importantly, of course, Hart wants to know what's coming out of these eggs. Doesn't want any Zerglings to try to run past into his base. But, well, the Zerglings deny him from going up that ramp so far.
Meanwhile, this Marine is shooting at this Overlord. Jaedong does not know that there is just a single Marine right now. Otherwise, he could just like use the high ground and be annoying in that way. But there's a reactor going down right now. This Marine might be able to get this Overlord, no?
This would be a pretty awesome pickup for him.
If he runs over here, he should be able to get it.
Yeah, that mineral line, he should.
It
can be so hard to tell sometimes. Is he gonna make it?
He's not gonna make it.
He's playing a game of chicken with this Overlord.
Well.
That is one of, you know, I talk about a lot of things being the worst feelings for Terran players. That is also one of the worst feelings. This guy, he put in so much time. He thought he went on a trip, and he was not able to complete his quest.
He should have pushed it a little harder in the gym, Nate. He would have worked out a tiny bit harder. He would have been a tiny bit faster. Would have maybe done a little more damage as well.
He skipped long range day.
Yes, exactly. This is what you get. That's why I don't skip leg day. Coming from me, I never do leg day. Man.
If he jumped, he could have shot farther.
More drones on the production tab for the Dong so far. Once again, it was just that single Reaper for hard. He also keeps that Reaper at home immediately. Speed finishes up for Jaedong. So far, everything is identical to what we saw before. Unless Jaedong suddenly decides to start mining gas again and warp in a Roach Warren.
Oh, snap. Are we going to see 2 evolution chambers as well?
Thinking Roach timing at 1-1?
Roach timings are never bad.
Would not be bad. Like if you think about this build from hard on both maps, he doesn't really have the units to deal with a crazy amount of 1-1 Roaches.
Nope. He didn't open up with the starport again, which is nice. So I guess Banshees can be good versus Roaches, but since he hasn't built evolution chambers or started a lair, I have to imagine more of a Roach shove, and then he'll try to saturate his 3 bases. Like, it's just not set up to be a prolonged Roach attack from him.
I mean, you think he's not going to go all out? I think he's going to make...
I don't think Jaedong, I don't think there's a reason for him to build more than 10 Roaches. And right now he's only got 6.
Yeah, these are defensive Roaches
yes,
almost.
6 is borderline defensive if he thinks Hellbats are going to come as well. Because we also have to keep in mind that now that Hellbats are kind of becoming a thing again, or at least Heart use them, he has to, you know, in the early heart of the Swarm, a lot of players did open Roaches as a way to deter Hellbats. So, at the very worst, he can use these for some pressure.
Yep, and it could, of course, trip Hard out a little bit as well. You know, if Hard is going to move out with these Hellions and he sees 6 Roaches, he might just throw down 3-4 bunkers immediately and sit back.
Go 6 bunkers like me.
A Hellion. Oh, 2 Roaches. Actually, these Hellions are somehow going to miss these Roaches in the middle of the map, which is actually not bad news. I actually think it's good news for Hard. Especially after he's going to find that circling. I wonder what Jaedong is going to do when he sees those Hellions on the north side of the map. He's just going to make a few more defensive Roaches, but he still has drones on the production map as well. Hellions actually coming home. Alright. Yeah. I think if Hard got lucky over there, he would have just sent those Hellions into the natural, into the 3rd base. That was completely exposed because all the Roaches were on the other side of the map.
Yeah, I think that's one of those situations where he could try to risk it, but maybe he wants to move out with Stim and Medivacs again. His Stim is just finished up. And look at this, 1-1 for the Roaches is on the way, Roach speed. So I think this is just going to be a slightly delayed +1 Roach timing, but it's also going to have the 3rd base economy really kicking in by the time he gets that production rolling. He could easily put out, I think, close to maybe 140 supply Roaches pretty easily.
He just fired up 5 Overlords as well, but still a few drones on the production tab for Jaedong. He's going to go up to almost 65 workers, and we can't really talk too much about the timing anymore. But we'll see. Burrow being researched as well. Might even see him firing up Tunneling Claws after a Roach speed is done. Do you think we're going to see Hydralisk then as well? Is that in the line of expectation with the way that Jaedong is upgrading this and playing this out?
When you attack with +1 Roach, if you can do any damage at all, Hydralisk Den is a really easy way to finish the game because the few Roaches that you have left over from the push or the limited army of your opponent lets the Hydras just kill everything else super quickly. If he doesn't do a lot of damage, he doesn't need to, but playing just pure Roach is never really a good idea in this matchup.
Just a single tag lab so far. Second Roach coming up as well. So, second Roach. Second tag lab will be coming up as well, so he's able to produce 2 Marauders at a time. I would love to see 3 Marauders maybe at a time. A lot of Roaches. It's going to be Roach and Roach only. What I would love to see from Hard right now, Nate, is just to see him sit back, scout this, identify what he's playing against, just throw up bunkers, Widow Mines, and just sit back with your bio army.
Yeah, as soon as he sees those Roaches...
I would even abandon this, like just abandon it right now.
Yeah, ideally, if you scout this coming fast enough, you could maybe try to throw the bunkers down in this low ground area where the Roaches are now, but now he can only defend his natural, and that means the 3rd base will get, be lifted up. That Overlord that the Marine couldn't kill at the beginning of the game is going to go poop on that base, and Well, Budominds hit some of these roaches, and we can see the power of the Bioforce here. Those roaches with the 1-1 are doing everything that they can. I think Heart's macro has been good enough, and keeping those Hellions alive in the earlier phase really helping you just get a little bit of extra damage on this army.
Yeah, he's pushing out a lot of damage. So many roaches of Jaedong are fallen. I really like how Heart has handled this so far, and this has to be a massive win for Heart. Only 1,600 resources lost for him. 3,500 resources lost for Jaedong. I do love how Jaedong is doing the small things that matter as well. You know, he's like, you're lifting up your orbital, let me start dropping some creep over there. That is that one overlord that survived earlier in the game, by the way.
He came back to get him. It's like, you didn't kill me.
And it's probably the same Marine that killed him.
Revenge is mine.
I'm gonna watch the replay just to see if that's the case, and if it is. We see a bunch of burrowed roaches over here in the middle. Could see that. This is actually relatively obvious.
Yeah,
on this terrain.
When roaches walk past you like that, it's visible, but he might not have been looking at his army, so that depot is lowered, and of course the roaches can move through that. Budominds are going to try to burrow by this fourth base of Jaedong. The Marines and Marauders are pressing in, and this, pure roach against Bio, that's hit, I think, 150 supply overall. If you're doing this on just Bio,
couldn't agree more.
It's almost impossible to kill this with just mass roaches.
Here are the Widowminds again. Jaedong knows as well he's going to have a hard time engaging this army. Of course, there are roaches killing a few SCVs, but that's not going to be as quick as this army that should just kill everything over here.
Yep. Natural expansion should get destroyed as these roaches retreat once more. These Widowminds are placed in a very nice spot to cover the retreating path, but they will detonate on the Broodlings. And, these roaches just fighting, even with the Queen support, it's just not enough. Heart has way too much here to fight versus with just roaches. He's going to kill this Roach Warren off. There's still roaches dealing damage back in his base, but now the production is limited. All he can make are Zerglings that have no upgrades.
Heart only has 16 SCVs actually, so those few roaches that I thought were going to be relatively harmless has done a surprising amount of damage, but still there is this army, a 98 supply Terran army of bio units with 1-1 upgrades against just roaches. Okay, there are spine crawlers, but there's nothing else.
Yeah, Marines and Marauders aren't really too perturbed by these spine crawlers. He's going to just blast straight through them. Roach Warren's not complete yet. Jaedong has absolutely nothing to stop this. He brought the roaches back from Heart's base, but these Marines and Marauders, they trade way too efficiently versus these cheap units.
Few Marauders are falling though, but the reinforcements have arrived for Heart, and those are the most important reinforcements. Perhaps the game-winning reinforcements. Are we looking at another surprise over here, Nate?
It seems so. Roach Warren destroyed once again. 14 roaches will pop out for Jaedong. He still has roaches inside of Heart's base, but the thing is, if in a base trade scenario, he can just lift his buildings up. So this Bioforce is always going to be more mobile with the Medivacs. Bioforce has stim and the healing power. Burrow is nice, but you can't fight while you're Burrow.
You know you've been stimming a lot when 8 Medivacs are all out of energy. But it's being okay. Every single stim has been worth it. A couple of reinforcements being intercepted here by the Dong, but he has to worry about those mines as well. Do we even have a single Overseer on the field? No, we don't. So those mines are terrifying.
No Overseer, no Lair. Actually cannot get mobile detection.
There should just be no way that Jaedong can win this. Like, yes, he's mining a tiny bit more right now. Heart is down to 1 SCV, so I mean that counterattack did the damage that Jaedong was hoping for, but he's just never been able to clean up this army from Heart.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those army compositions that if you have, I don't even know if Hydras would have done it, but some Banelings, that could be really, really helpful. Just a few big hits. The Widowmind does
more damage than most of the units of Jaedong have done.
Yeah, but he's in the final mining base of Jaedong. The drones are dropping left and right.
Again, though.
9 roaches are on the way.
Those roaches are going to hatch.
They have, I mean, those 9 roaches actually have to win him the game versus a 3 command center Terran player.
Yes, most likely not going to cut it. These Marauders still standing strong, and GG is called. Heart played a very impressive and very strong first series of the day over here against Jaedong, and we'll move on to our winners match where Hyun is waiting for him. Wow, I expected Heart to be good, and people were referring to this as the group of death, but I still kind of felt that Jaedong and Hyun were clear favorites on paper. But Heart showing us that he came prepared, man, and he did everything right.
Yeah, I'm really wondering what Jaedong was expecting from Heart in that series. The Roach shove was nice, but usually you use that to transition into either your Mutalisks afterwards or, Roachling, Baneling. Some players like Hyun used to do that. It just seemed like that game, there was a little bit of tunnel visioning on the army composition because Heart didn't miss a beat with his macro. He had more than enough Marines and Marauders to fight straight Roaches head-to-head. And you can see in this defensive push.
What I love here, Nate, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but look how confident he is. He immediately realizes, like, hey, after those Wither Mines, I actually have more than enough damage over here. I don't think that the last thing that Jaedong expected is that Terran army to run into him, but Hard immediately picking up on the fact that he is like, I have enough bio over here, I can do this, shoots, move forward, and from that point on, there's no retreat for Jaedong.
No, not at all. And there's, just the fact of the matter is when you have that many units, those Roaches don't have the same range as the Marines and Marauders. Just, as you said, way too much firepower. And that puts Hart now in that 2-1 sweet spot. He's going to go to play against Hyun in the winners match, another Terran versus Zerg. And that I'm actually really excited to see. Hyun usually plays, I'd say, a bit of a different animal of a Zerg versus Terran than Jaedong. But, I mean, we might still see another very Roach-heavy force. Maybe Hyun will show us how it's done.
Yeah, maybe he will, but maybe Hart will upset everybody. And of course, if Hart wins against Hyun, that means that we are either going to lose Hyun or Jaedong or Jim. But, this is a tough group for Jim, and I always believe in Jim. He's still crazy. And I said it before, Jim is a very, very dangerous opponent for Jaedong. Either way, I'm getting already excited thinking about it. Is Hart going to be able to upset again against Hyun? The way that he played, so convincing.
He could.
I believe in it, actually. We'll see. All right, guys, a small commercial break, and after that, we'll be right back with a new TVC. It's going to be the winners match of Group E, Hart versus Hyun. Stay tuned.